Good morning, Vietnam!
This week on Erotic Awakening, Lead Follow Love with Kevin and Katie, Kevin's Omelette, and Second City.
Welcome to Erotic Awakening, an exploration of all things erotic. If you are offended by adult topics or prohibited by law, we recommend you stop listening right now.
We want to thank our latest patron supporters,
Barbie,
Ash,
Jules,
and Teresa.
It's been a fabulous week with all these new patrons and so much information, so much conversation on Discord. Head over to patreon.com/erotic awakening today and get your bonus content and support the show.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Dan.
Today on the podcast, we are going to talk with, Dawn, lately, every week I get a different author that wants to pitch their book.
Mm-hmm.
And anymore, it's like, I don't think people care anymore about all the books that want to be pitched.
Right.
But this book.
Yes,
really well.
We had to make an exception for this book, right?
Because we wrote it with friends, Kevin and Katie, who are on the podcast with us tonight. Thanks for joining us, guys.
You're welcome.
Hey there.
So tell me about how a book of 4 people coming together to write this massive tome of over 300 pages came about.
So how it came about or what?
It's a big story.
That's why we don't prep you with any questions before we start recording.
Right.
No script.
Well, see, the thing is, though, Dan takes credit for this book coming about, and so he's set this up. So I have to say, well, Dan had this great idea. What he should have started with is, I had this great idea, and here's how Kevin and Katie helped make it happen. But he's set me in the place where I have to say, well, Dan had this great idea because he read...
Dan, what book did you read?
The Guy in the Motorcycle and...
The Guru.
Yes.
No, the monk.
The zebra with a zoot suit. No.
Dan, see? Help us.
Pretty sure.
First off, I'm going to have a ringtone of Kevin saying, Dan had a great idea. I love so the books that that created the thought pattern behind this. One of them was a Buddhist scholar named Goldman and Jeff Bridges, who people know from other things other than he played the dude. So the book is the dude and the monk. And it was a conversation where they just sat around and talked about topics. Earlier than that, John Cleese and B.F. Skinner got together. I think it's B.F. Skinner. And they had a general conversation about psychology. And I said, well, that's just really fascinating. They just had some questions and talked about them. And that's what I pitched to you guys.
And we used to meet together a lot over the years where we would have a list of questions, go visit Kevin and Katie. And during COVID, it was quarantine, and then go visit Kevin and Katie and then have our list of questions.
Shit, you know what? We still do that. We still have our little list of words that we want to talk about and things we want to talk about.
And there were always questions. Sometimes there are topics, right? It wasn't like we had to find an answer. It was a topic for discussion. Go ahead. Now you've got your foundation because Dan just passed that too soon.
Just a little. So we ended up taking 30 topics that we all kind of voted on and decided were the best, most interesting topics. We took those and imagine trying to make an omelet, but trying to get like Chef Ramsay and IHOP and Waffle House and Katie all to agree on that omelet and make it together, right? All 4 of these, and it just won't work.
You've got very different omelet skills coming in.
You're going to have Gordon Ramsay yelling, fuck it, Katie, all day long, right? So instead, we decided that we would take those 4 questions and have each author...
You just said 4 questions.
Those questions, not 4 questions, those 30 questions, and have all 4 authors answer them in their own voice, not trying to blend them, not trying to come up with a harmonious answer that we could all stand behind, but instead individual answers to those interesting topics. And to make it really
that was too easy,
zesty and fun, we gave ourselves a 30-minute time limit. So we had no idea which question we were going to have. We pulled it out of a hat. which wasn't a hat, it was a small box. We started typing madly with no discussion, no conversation.
With a 30-minute timer
With a
running.
30-minute timer.
So it's kind of like speed journaling on a topic.
And then we shoved all that in a book with Raven Caldera crying tears
Of editor. Editor tears. Because free range journaling in a speed kind of format creates sentences you didn't expect.
So he said something along the lines of, do you want the stench of spontaneity left in this, or something like that? And I said no, actually we want the whiff.
Bring it down to whiff.
So you can add a comma if you have to, but otherwise try to leave it like as much in our voice as you can.
And that is so tough for an editor to leave it in the voice of how people talk.
I think he barely touched it, other than to make sure that, like, writing Band-Aid without a capital B wouldn't get any of us sued. Like, other than really like high level sort of taking care of the most egregious mistakes and the spots where you read a sentence and say, what the hell? Those he tried to get clarity on, but otherwise he just left it the crazed mess it was when it came out of our fingers.
I wanted to add that we didn't take the easy road. We kind of at the beginning threw aside all the 101 questions and picked the questions that were really introspective, really vulnerable, really personal, and the ones that we don't get asked out the starting gate from everybody that might be in coming into an authority transfer relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it was challenging to us. And it was also the vulnerability. Sometimes when we would share what we wrote with each other, we were like, wow, do we really want to put this in the public? Or is this just a little thing we've really enjoyed together?
Yeah, I think, Dan, was it you that actually mentioned after we did the first couple of questions that was like, ooh, this is kind of vulnerable. Maybe we shouldn't publish this.
But I didn't say it I was concerned about how it would be taken.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was very much a journaling exercise, and it was you guys are using the word vulnerable. That's great. We'll stick with that. But I did not pull any punches on how I feel about things and how I look at things. And it felt like something I wasn't afraid to share it with the public, but it felt so special. I kind of wanted to keep it for ourselves, which is probably not a great attitude for an educator and an author, actually.
And it was kind of cool.
Like you had the painting of Mona Lisa with those sunflowers from Van Gogh. And you were just like, I don't want to put this in public because I just want this somewhere special that I can just enjoy it myself and keep it safe. Just like that.
Yes, exactly like that, Katie. So the other thing that we did that we like to point out is that we didn't do a lot of disclaimers in here. We did one big disclaimer at the front of, we are not doing disclaimers, because when we teach as presenters, we're always like, your way is this way, and we don't want to tread on toes.
It doesn't work for you, and take what you need.
Exactly.
But that's the difference. When we sat down and started and hit that keyboard with 30 minutes on a question, it was about us. It was about our experience, our life. And it wasn't like we were standing in front of people and trying to teach or guide. It was just sharing what we'd experienced.
And when we're teaching, sometimes we are trying to give an answer, trying to give something that people can say, oh yeah, that makes sense and it's valuable to me. And in this case, we were just giving us, right? We weren't trying to say this is a good thing for you to consider. I don't know. I don't care whether someone considers my way or makes use of it. This is a way to spark conversation. This is a way to begin to explore. And so that's one of the amazing things about this particular book is you get 4 perspectives on the same topic. You get 4 viewpoints that aren't necessarily cohesive. And so it's not like we've come up with the answer by being, one wonderful 20-year relationships and we've all got it figured out. We came up with 4 different answers often. And that meant that you get this fascinating 4 different looks at the same problem, which gives you a chance to think, oh, I have space to build my answer. to this question. I have space to build a relationship that includes this and that and these other pieces, because clearly there isn't a the answer, or they all four would have said the same thing.
Right.
This opportunity to have my answer. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, so how do you disclaimer for that?
Yeah.
Right.
And it was neat in that because we all know each other fairly well, not only is the 30-minute time limit, it doesn't give you time to put things in a pretty perspective or to put things in the appropriate perspective. But then we had the process of, after we wrote, we sat there and read it to each other. And you guys would have called me on my shit if you heard me say, well, you know, whatever works best for you is fine and dandy. Perhaps, though, if you live in mom's basement, maybe you don't want to call yourself master just yet. Had I written something like that, and look, that was before the current housing crisis. If you got a place in mom's basement, you stay right there. Shit, yeah. But if I'd written something that was full of shit, you know, we would call each other on it and say, that's not who, that's how Dan the author or Dan the presenter talks, but that's not this book. This is what's Dan actually think.
Yeah, and we actually like shared some of the messy shit.
Yes.
So we had
Well,
four people
okay.
write the foreword, and at least one of them said, "Oh my God, I'm glad I wasn't the only one that was that messy at the beginning. I didn't realize it." And you know, not all of us remember to share that. I mean, we do, but some people don't realize just how messy it can be when you're trying to figure this out without role models.
And speaking of forward, we had some extraordinary forward authors. So shout out to Dr. Brad Sagrin from University of NIU, from the Science of BDSM research team, and Mama Vi from the Carter Johnson Library, and Slave Nadine. She's Master Slave 2006? International Master Slave 2003?
I don't remember the year. It's early in the 2000s.
When
Yeah.
the century changed.
Yeah, back. And then, Joshua
Tenpenny from Raven and Joshua. So nice voices from all of them.
Voices from lots of perspectives. And
did you see, you had to have seen, because you told us about it. I just watched the Mama Vi opening of the book.
Unboxing
the book. Oh my God, she had such wonderful stuff to say. That was so cool.
Yeah.
She's wonderful. That's on Facebook, on Mama Vi's Facebook page.
On the Carter Johnson.
Carter Johnson.
Yeah.
So Katie, was there any point where people were aligned, where like you and Dawn pretty much had the same answer to a question? Or
look at Dawn's face.
Because I remember the word cowboy.
There was a question,
right? Yeah. There was a question where you mentioned cowboys and Katie mentioned cowboys, and it was a totally different answer, but you both used
nothing to do with cowboys. But in our journals, it was like we had talked, but we hadn't. I think mine said something about trying to guess something is like jumping off the saloon roof and not having the right horse waiting to straddle and get you in your jewels or something like that. And then Dan said something entirely different about cowboys in his writing, but. But as far as aligned in, like, I think that, like, as followers, Dawn and I are both in the follower role, that we are aligned in many of our perspectives, and then we're growth oriented and we don't want to disappoint. So all those kinds of things. But our way of relating to people, our way of journaling and writing is so vastly different. Dawn is very anecdotal. She finds a story that she can use for people to like kind of as a touchstone connect to and have a reminder, and you have many different aspects to your life, and I tend to create the most bizarre connectors and descriptors I can so that people might laugh, and then they might notice that I have some brains behind it. So it's hard to see the alignment when the writing style is so different. Our omelettes, they probably have very similar flavors, but they look very different on the plate.
And interestingly, couples sometimes had some good alignment because we've lived the same lives together, right? We know each other. And sometimes followers matched pretty well and leaders matched pretty well. And sometimes it was just a shotgun of, we all see that in similar ways, but not really necessarily aligned. So
I think a good example of that would be like there's a chapter that the question was describe a shitty day in your relationship and what that looked like and how you navigated it. So if 4 people without communicating sit down to write that, you're going to end up with 4 different stories of what a really hard day in your relationship that you can recall and how the authority transfer dynamic supported that and you got through it. So that's part of that journaling process.
So you keep referring to the questions. Give me an example of some of the questions that are in
Okay,
there.
I got them. Do you got them?
You
Yes.
could go to for those of you unfamiliar with books, she could right now be turning to the table of contents. However, she's madly flipping through the pages. The table of contents doesn't have the questions anymore. It used to, it does not. So I'm totally wrong.
So as a follower, I want to say that sometimes you just wait for them to realize that they're wrong because telling them wrong is much more difficult. How do you deal with being disappointed or causing disappointment? You want to fuck, but they don't. What do you do? Now reverse it. They want to fuck and you don't. How do you answer that? What does a shitty day look like in your relationship? There we go. Tell us about a significant disagreement and how it was resolved. These are really intimate topics.
And especially to answer them in 30 minutes, boom, as soon as they're pulled out, man, you're going with what's the most intense thing in your brain.
First thing that hits your head and go, right?
Yep.
And man, there's got to be at least, what did we do? 32 questions. There's got to be at least 5 that I wish weren't in the book and I could rewrite. Because of like where I was in my traveling days in the RV and frustration levels or whatever, and there's some of them where I answered rah, 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 what the, whatever, and today I'd be like, oh, life is great and I feel like a wonderful competent master driving around that RV all over Hellengone. I did not feel like a competent master. I didn't feel like I was, so right now today I would love to rewrite about 5 of those chapters, but they were right there in the moment.
Yes.
And that's valuable too.
I was just going to say, somebody else is in that moment.
Yep.
And
exactly.
And so despite my embarrassment about some of them or my vulnerability in some of them, that's where I was in the moment.
And there was one, because we did this. We parked our RVs next to each other in central Pennsylvania somewhere. And this is what we did every morning at 7 o'clock for a couple of weeks was to write this thing. And there was something that happened. I had to actually put one of the questions on hold, if you guys remember. A question got drawn and I'm okay with writing about vulnerability and stuff like that. We do it all the time, podcast, books, presenting. But there was one question that popped out that I'm like, I cannot answer this today. With the political stuff that's going on, this has hit me so hard that I cannot. It was something like the question of how do you, what was it? Being a woman and a follower.
It had something to do with being a woman.
Being a woman and a follower, or
I got it.
Like that.
How do you reconcile empowerment and independence with transferring authority? So it was about.
I think that's the one.
I think that might have been the one.
So, and that one was just so hard. I'm like, can we just throw that back in the hat and give me a couple of days to settle down with
randomly later? Yeah.
So, and we did it randomly later, and that worked. But we only had to do that with one question that I'm aware of. And then I had a meltdown, and then I was okay.
And then through the Kickstarter, we got 2 people who wanted their question in the book. They backed us to the level that they got to insert their question in the book. And so as the book was wrapping up, we got 2 bonus questions to put in. Both were
those were tough questions.
Very challenging. Like those are folks who clearly think about these things and had something they wanted to lay down in front of us as a challenge, because they took some heavy thought to get through. Absolutely.
They really did. So the 30 minutes kind of saved us in one fashion, because you really couldn't think it and overthink it. You had to go with what really popped out first, because some of us write really fast and some of us like bullet points. And
hey, quit looking at me.
But this kind of kept us all on even ground.
There is one glaring error that we should probably like just put out there so folks know about it as they decide whether to make a purchase. One of the questions Katie entirely misread.
Talking about you.
That's okay. So Katie misread one, but then I didn't get the joke on another one.
Oh, that's true.
There's another one that you guys are like, oh yeah, that's right, this is funny, and boom, 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 a couple of lines, and the joke is done, and I'm like going on, and it's like journaling. So I totally missed the joke.
Yeah, there was a joke chapter, and Sean, Dawn just missed the fact that it was a joke chapter and decided to be serious about it.
Humor goes over my head sometimes. That's what I do.
Well, it was supposed to be like.
I do admit at the front of my writing on that one, I'm like, I'm sorry. When I transcribed the question, it wasn't this question. So I just seem like the odd sheep there. So when it says 3 experts and a fool wrote this book, you know about that chapter.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you about that, but I want to ask first, one of the things that you ended up, we put together, and really, let's make this clear. One of the things that Kevin and Katie thought would be cool would be a companion journal. And we were a little lukewarm on that idea, but we said, if you think it's going to go, feel free. And my understanding is you sold out of your journals the first time people had the opportunity to see them.
First time out the door, yes.
So tell me about the companion journal.
Okay, so we've been obviously sharing with everybody right now how valuable this journaling together and using difficult questions were. And when we were finished,
and reading them to each other,
and having those discussions. And so when we were finished, it seemed like a wonderful idea to take those questions, put them into a journal where there would be the question as we asked it, a couple of pages for you to free write about what your experience is, your answers are. You flip the page, and then there's 3 or 4 prompting questions to let you introspect even deeper on that topic and write some more if you choose. And so everything we experience in this book is available for other people to experience in their relationship or personally, so they'll know themselves better. If they're seeking a partner, they'll know themselves better. And people seem to immediately key into the value of having that alongside the book.
I think it's fabulous. Yeah.
Every book we sold had sold with at least one journal, and except for one. And one couple came up and they said, we just want the book. And we know this couple, and we're like, oh, really? And she said, yes, because we read out loud every night something, and then we discuss it. And so for them, that's a way they were going to use that. And they were like, we're really looking forward to experiencing this together.
They didn't need the journal because they were going to chew on every word together.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Amazing. Yeah.
So it's brand new book. It's just out there. Any feedback yet?
We got a fascinating. One of the forward authors said, or maybe a couple of them said, you know what? This is actually not necessarily for authority transfer couple only or kink only. This is a really good perspective and set of
just experiences, skills, tools, all those things.
Sure. That any relationship, any couple could potentially benefit from. And so we almost immediately after sending out the ebooks got a response from a guy who read it with his wife. So similarly, they read it together and chew on it together like that.
Like in 2 days.
So yeah,
Flew through it.
4 days later, right? We get an email, and they are deeply religious, not in a hierarchical relationship of any kind, and said that it was an extraordinary, amazing benefit to them because it created great conversation, kind of, that even though they aren't in a hierarchical relationship, they saw a lot of value in. Yes?
Nothing.
Did I say the word wrong?
No, I was thinking about how you said your email back to him was like, what about all the fucking suck in that book, right?
Because he said deeply religious, and I said, man, the half of that book is porn. What do you
There's a lot of sex and swearing in that book.
Yes.
Yep, because we wrote how we thought.
Yeah. So
his reply to that, I think, was something about he'd rather read about like sex and swear words than have
people taking the Lord's name in vain.
He's like,
he's like, chill. sex is okay. Being what's the word for that?
Blasphemous?
Yes, being blasphemous is not.
Yeah.
So
it's wonderful to hear from different people that
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's fantastic. So one more question for you, if you don't mind. In the back of the book, there's appendix number 2 allows you to keep score. Who, like when you read one question, like perhaps you read the question, how do you handle it when someone questions or challenges your dynamic? You get 4 different answers, and you could align yourself with who you think, oh yeah, I like Dan's answer, I like Dawn's answer, or whatever.
So there's a score sheet in the back where people can vote. Yep.
Yes.
Or just keep track.
So my question is, the back of the book has the standard, disclaimer, or not disclaimer, but conversation about what the book's about. And it suggests that this book was written by 3 experts and a fool. So I don't think anyone ever told me who the fool is. Who's the fool?
We weren't going to tell. 3 of us met and told us each other that we weren't going to tell the other one. So if you don't know,
you might be the person that got left out.
Oh wait, was I in that meeting? I don't remember. I'm sure I was, though. I'm sure I was.
I love that picture that we used on the back of the book because it shows how much fun that we have together.
Goofy steampunk picture.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, all of us in our steampunk outfits. So that's kind of cool.
I really like 3 experts and a fool because it says to me that we don't take ourselves too seriously. It says to me that in any given moment, one of us might be full of shit. It says to me that in classic Renaissance days or whatever, the fool was the person in the court who could tell the truth and not get his head chopped off. There's lots of meaning to being the fool in a group, and
I would suggest this book was written by 4 experts and 4 fools at the same time.
Oh, good. I like that.
So, Kevin, Katie, tell people where, if they are interested, where can they go get this book?
Probably the easy way to do it is go to leadfollowlove.com.
Fabulous.
Well, there you go. Excellent.
Do we have to list anything else? I mean, there's a few other ways, but that's the best way.
Well,
leadfollowlove.com.
Well, do the best way. Hang out with us uncomfortably for a little bit while we wrap this thing up.
Okay, boring.
It's
like an opera?
Do it like an opera.
Oh, hell no. Remember, humor, not.
We'll talk about doing it like an opera in just a moment when we get down to the random area. If you would like to call us out on being a fool in person, you could easily do that at a variety of upcoming events.
We'll be in Chicago,
Kansas City,
Arizona times 3.
I was just going to say Arizona.
And Minnesota.
And many other places. Keep up with all of our events, book news, discounts, and more via the Erotic Awakening newsletter.
And get your EA shout out.
Like Kevin, who I signed up for the newsletter earlier.
Head over to eroticawakening.com and subscribe today.
Dawn, what is the chat and pick on Discord about how to present canes and crops?
So fascinating conversation with a lot of us, and a lot of us sharing old pictures of how we've presented crops over the years, and then some people posting pictures of the Gorian way of doing it, and then they got really naughty, so we had to put them over to the Not Safe for Work channel.
It's super interesting, but I clearly recall an image of me training you. Oh, when I ask for a crop, I want you to hand it to me in so-and-so manner. And studying some of the Gorian protocols, at least our local Gorians said, here's how you do this and here's how you do that.
Yes. And I posted that picture. That's I don't even know if I'm wearing my leather collar in that picture. So it could have been, I know that was the Grove City house, so early 2000s sometimes. So a few of us posted our personal pictures, but there's some naughty ways of presenting a crop or a cane, according to what I saw, and a couple of them involved butt cheeks.
I was going to say. Katie, how would you?
Kevin asked me for a crop, I planted canola.
That was pretty funny.
That is.
So, Katie, you used to live pretty close to the Chicago, correct?
Yes.
When you think about Chicago, right, other than pizza, what do you think of when you think Chicago?
The most stinking high housing taxes I've ever paid in my life.
Kevin,
you want
when you
brighter?
think Chicago, what do you think of?
Portatilis.
that big shiny mirror bean.
Mirror bean.
Mirror bean?
Downtown Chicago is a giant bean that's like a mirror, and everybody stands and gets selfies done. It's massive.
Giant mirror bean.
It's like as big as our house.
Go ahead.
You're both right. Improv. Chicago is well known for its improv scene. So for my birthday, about a month ago, I guess now,
You were given tickets.
I was given tickets by my partner, Tracy, and her partner, T-Rex Ties. That pause was not because I forgot your name, Tracy. It's because I trying to remember what name we use on the podcast, and we simply used Tracy. That's a great scene name there, honey. Anyway, they gave us tickets to Second City, which is the place to go to for improv. It's people like John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd and Gilda Radner, Chris Farley, many of the people you know from Saturday Night Live, all got their start at Second City. And we went to a show there. And Dawn, did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I kept trying not to sit on an aisle seat though, because I don't like to get picked on. And Dan loves to get picked on. So I kept switching seats with him. But yeah, it was fantastic. They did a phenomenal job.
It is probably the funniest live comedy I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
They did both some pre-rehearsed skits, and then they did an hour of just straight up improv, and it was so insanely good. I consider myself a fairly skilled improver until I saw that. Then I realized I got nothing. These people were so insanely good.
Yeah, they've been training for years though, right? But even at the end, they're like, and for you guys that think this is easy, it's fucking not. And I'm like, wow, that means that there was more improv in there than I thought. That's how smooth it was.
Yeah.
So
do you think, Kevin and Katie, since you're still here, do you think that there's any value in improv in an authority transfer relationship?
I'm sorry, I'm going to need some time to think about that.
Katie's losing it.
If you mean joyful, witty banter and interactions, oops, sorry. We have a dust storm coming in.
That's interesting. Sorry, if you can hear the screaming alarm, it's either like my car got stolen or a dust storm.
There.
Yeah, I think improv is useful.
Is this a real question?
It is now, because I have one aspect of it that I think actually is useful.
It felt like there was a question mark at the end, so I'm trying to give it credit. only in that life isn't scripted, and when all of a sudden you hear a strange tone of voice out of your follower, you have to decide, do I reprimand? Do I ignore? Do I ask questions? Do I inquire what that's about? Do I offer to help with whatever I think the problem is? Do I make assumptions, right? And so there's an in the moment necessity to be quick on your feet and be ready to respond as life unfolds in front of you in an appropriate leadership way or followership way.
I agree with that. And also the aspect of one of the keys to improv is active listening. And how many relationship issues can we avoid by simply listening, actively listening to what our partner is saying in that moment.
In the moment.
All right. Other than that, Dawn, oh, well, there you go.
Isn't that cool? I have a tentacle, but it was phenomenal. So Barrick actually sent me something, and every once in a while he'll send me something. But here we go. Dan, I want to show you this. Look at this octopus tattoo.
Holy cats, that can't be a real tattoo.
So I'll have to show you guys, Kevin and Katie, in a little bit. But it's a black and white octopus tattoo with like rainbow highlights on it. It's phenomenal.
I don't know why you called it black and white
because this is black and white.
Rainbow highlights.
Right.
It's full color.
All the colors of gray.
But it is, isn't it? I mean, it's not like it's an orange octopus or a green octopus. It is a gray scaled octopus, and then it's got tinges of rainbow on it.
Yes, it does.
So
it is fantastic. And like I said, it's almost so insanely good. I don't know that it's real.
So if it's not real, what is it?
AI, man. Everything is AI.
Everything is AI.
As a matter of fact,
now.
Dan and Dawn have actually retired from podcasting about a year ago.
Did they?
Yeah, this is all AI. We're all robots now. Be a part of the Erotic Awakening Podcast community.
You can support us on Patreon and get early access to the podcast, a free version of the audiobook Polyamory Toolkit, free ebooks, discounts on monthly Zoom classes, member-only Discord access, and more.
Get all the discount and goodies at patreon.com/Erotic Awakening today.
Help others find us. Take a moment to support the podcast. Rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Or just tell your friends.
Join the conversation with us and other listeners. Use the links from the Erotic Awakening website for our growing Discord channel.
Feel free to reach out to us.
Contact us with questions, podcast comments, or just say hi.
We are Dan and Dawn on FetLife.
And Erotic Awakening on Instagram.
Or just email us at dananddawn@eroticawakening.com.
Bye, Dan.
Bye, Dawn. Bye,
Bye,
Kevin. Bye, Katie.
None of that was opera.
Robots can't do opera.